So welcome everyone to this ROV chat. Today, Stephen and I are going to discuss this feeling that many people have that they're isolated and alone. And today we're going to talk about how that's really based on a faulty science and a faulty mindset of the nature of who we are and the nature of our reality. And I want to begin by reading some excerpts from this book, Stalking the Wild Pendulum by Itzhak Bentov, who is a scientist, an inventor, and a visionary who died in 1979. But his books are kind of having a resurgence because they give us such a different picture of reality that is now being backed up in new physics and new scientific experiments. So let's start with reading from Bentov and we'll see where we go from there. So he begins in this section by talking about what happens when we close an electrical circuit. So when we have a wire that is connected to the two ends of a battery, but it's interrupted by a switch. So when you open the switch, there's no current running through, but when you close the switch, then current runs through that little system. So he says, we were told in school that three things happen. Number one, that electrical current will run from one side of the battery to the other. Two, that a magnetic field perpendicular to that current will shoot out and expand all the way to infinity at the speed of light. And three, that the wire will heat up slightly. They probably did not tell us that when the wire heats up, it expands. And by so doing, it will clearly force air out of its way and make a kind of sound, a vibration in space. Or five, that as the mass of the wire is accelerated in this way, so it's accelerated by expanding, it will produce gravitational waves. Since anytime a mass is accelerated, it will broadcast gravitational waves, which will again expand to infinity at the velocity of light. So we normally think we close a circuit, we turn on a light goes on. We don't think much more about that. We don't think about the electrical, magnetic, and gravitational fields that are generated by that simple closing of a circuit. So how does that relate to us? Well, it turns out that all our cells are similar circuits. So if we go a little later in the book, he talks about magnifying a piece of bone and what you discover as you go into smaller and smaller scales. Very soon, an orderliness will emerge as you magnify the bone. Highly ordered bone crystals embedded like jewels in webs of long molecular strings, and everything is vibrating. Let's see, so we go on and on. So everything is vibrating in the bone. We think of the bone as this kind of solid structure, but when we look closer, we find that it's actually a crystalline structure and it is in a state of vibration. It's a piezoelectrical system in the bone. So next we go finer and we go down to atoms. And at first they appear as little shadowy balls vibrating about fixed points in the molecule. But as we magnify, we see less and less. The electron shell is somehow dissolved and we are looking at a vacuum. As we further magnify, we see something tiny moving about. We focus on what we suspect is the nucleus of the atom, located in this vast space within the atom. If we take the diameter of the nucleus of a hydrogen atom to be 1 millimeter, so if it was 1 millimeter, then the diameter of the electron orbit will be about 10 meters, a ratio of 1 to 10,000. And the intervening space is vacuum, so that cell is mostly empty space. So as we zero in and further magnify the vibrating nucleus, it seems to be dissolving. We are looking at some shadowy pulsation, some more magnification in the nucleus is almost gone. We are sensing the pulsation of some energy. It seems to be a rapidly pulsating field. But where did the bone go? We thought that we were looking at a solid piece of matter. Well, it seems that the real reality, the micro reality, that which underlies all solid, good, common sense reality, is made up, as we have just witnessed, of a vast fields all interacting with each other. And he goes on to describe some of the different fields that are involved. So we are surrounded and permeated by several fields. The so-called isoelectric static field of the planet, which is between the crust of the Earth and the ionosphere, which is a charged atmosphere that has electrical current in it. The electrostatic fields created by our bodies. So our bodies, each cell is really an electrical circuit within a matrix of cells, which are electrical circuits. The magnetic field of the Earth, the electromagnetic field, which has very wide spectrum, ranging from the very slow wave caused by disturbances in the atmosphere through the spectrum of the visible light and into the ultraviolet and high frequency radiation. The gravitational fields of the Earth, the Moon, and the neighboring planets and the Sun, and the electromagnetic fields created by humans, including radio and television networks and Wi-Fi signals. So really we're existing as oscillating fields on a cellular level in a larger field, which is oscillating the body, within all these fields of the Earth, within the fields of the solar system and the galaxies and so on. And this gives us a real different view of who we are versus this kind of isolated, fixed, dense entity. And just to back that up further and lead us a little farther in our discussion, we've been also reading The Body Electric by Dr. Robert Becker. And in here, he talks about how this science of in a random universe got generated by how cell biology got started. That when cell biologists first looked at the first cells, what they did was they took the cytoskeleton out of the cell and then they immersed the components of the cell in liquid, and then they looked at it and tried to determine how the different components interrelated and interacted with each other. And of course, this gave us a chemistry view of life. But what they didn't realize was that the cytoskeleton was actually what held the whole thing together. It is what gave the cell this crystalline network electrically and the fields of the body and communicated with the fields within which our bodies are formed. So the cytoskeleton of each cell connects to all the other cells' cytoskeletons, which are connected in the connective tissue network of the body. And there's an electrical signaling that's happening through the whole body, through this network, and within the network of the Earth itself and within the network of the universe. And that is a whole different picture of who we are and how we exist here and how we came to be in the structure that we are and what that structure is. That structure is fields within fields oscillating at different frequencies and communicating with the field and with each other through frequency and vibration.
Beautiful, Kevin. It's such a beautiful picture for all of us really to understand that we are this relationship of vibration to field, and that we are simply energy fields and vibrations that we can, just as the body electric talks about, that when we do raise our vibration, or we do actually connect in with a higher voltage, we are actually capable of transmitting and connecting and transferring information from one organism, one human being to another. And so I do think, if we bring it back to, are we alone? So there, I'm sure everybody can relate to a day when you just had a miserable day and it hasn't been that great, and you're sitting at home and everything, you feel all alone, and then somebody rings you up and someone reaches out, and it raises your vibration, just that subtle bit. It pulls you out of yourself. The limited construct of the identity that tends to have all these ideas and thoughts and concepts about itself as being a very limited construct, a very limited self. The power of our interconnectedness, and that's just not including human to human. This could be a pet that you've got, could be connecting with trees, just the sheer moment of deciding that you're going to actually move your energy just a little bit, actually drops into what I was going to talk briefly about, and that is the power of the vibration within a field. So when we actually look at the oscillations, vibrations, and energy transfer, we realize that vibrations themselves actually underlie intrinsically every aspect of nature. So you were talking about Bentov's, or relationship or experiment to the wire that was heating up. And, we understand that the vibrations of atoms themselves create sound and heat. So literally, we as human beings are vibrating all the time. We know that. You can rub your hand right now as you're listening and like this, and you'll generate heat. So there is a natural vibration that we have that's in, as Kevin, as you were saying, that's in every single atom. And literally, light arises from the vibrations of the electrons of any object. And so, for example, when we say something's a particular color, like blue, for example, what's actually really happening is that the light has made the electrons within the object vibrate in such a way that causes an emission of this blue light. So we're interacting like that. Light and matter are interacting, and we're doing this all the time. We know this when we see somebody, we know this when we speak to somebody. The vibrations of our speech actually transfer energy and information. So at a really basic level, all of life depends on these vibrating fields, upon molecules interacting with each other through these vibratory or oscillating fields. So we really are not alone. We are literally, our cells are interacting with each other. So if you look at that, there's never any aloneness, because there's always this interconnectedness and interdependence of cells. And in that essence, when you really recognize it, we're never separate from each other. We know through subtle energy meditation, the torus field, we can actually raise the torus field and connect with other beings, with other people. We can use that power in different ways simply by raising our vibration. So virtually all that we know about living systems is based on this sense of vibration. So as you've said, in the living body, every single electron, atom, chemical bond, molecule, cell, tissue, organ, all of it, and the body as a whole, has a vibratory character, which, for those of you using Muse headsets, you can even see the vibration in your brain waves. It has a particular character. And it's the same with our body. There's a sense of a body signature, a body vibration, a body field. So we have all of that. We have a vibratory character, we have field character. So we're not separate from all this. We are literally interdependent and interacting with our environment, with each other, based on this vibratory character and this vibratory signature and this field signature. So they're all these kind of biological oscillations or vibrations. They're organized in very meaningful ways, and they contribute to a very dynamic network of information and energy that extends beyond the body and into the space around us. So we know that this by the fact that if somebody angry walks into the room but doesn't tell you that they're angry, we know we can pick up this emotional vibratory field. So energy medicine, subtle energy meditation, vibrational medicine, all of this actually is working with these vibratory oscillation field generation and an energetic matrix that facilitates raising our vibration, facilitates healing, and basically connects with all the things that we're talking about to remind us that we really simply are not alone, because these vibrations are part of the bioenergetic field and fundamental physics right throughout being, and it applies to anything. It applies to any clinical method, regardless of any philosophy or technique. There are really powerful energetic interactions that are occurring even now between us and everybody that's listening, between you and me, Kevin, even when we're not in physical contact. And we do know, because as I said, when we're not in physical contact, but we see and talk with somebody, there is this powerful energetic interaction that goes on through light and sound. So we can transfer this information via one organism to another via energy fields. And this is really potent for anybody who feels that they're alone, because literally by somebody connecting with you, or you choosing to connect with somebody else, you can transfer, relate, connect, transfer any information. And we know our living systems are very sensitive to this. If we speak about love, we speak in a loving and kind or a really openly compassionate way towards another human being, we really feel it. We feel it even if we're just talking over the phone. If you're talking to your mum over a long distance and you really feel something from your mum, and your mum or your dad extend out their love to you, you feel it. So our living systems are really sensitive to this field interaction, this vibratory oscillating nature, right from a cellular level right up to the cosmos itself. So what, then you add touch into it, and you bring any intention to reach out through and touch another person, then brings a whole new dimension of subtle and measurable exchanges. So it's kind of the potency of the field interactions and the exchange of energy information through vibration is right at the heart of what we're teaching and sharing in subtle energy meditation.
Right. And it's that sensitivity to it that first, I think, begins with some basic understanding of ourselves that is different from this dense material substance. When we start to really see who we are and the nature of this reality is vibration, that opens our minds, right? It opens us, because if we're feeling alone and we're feeling isolated, we're not feeling that sense of connection, right? We're feeling closed off. Just opening our minds to the fact that we are interconnected as a fact, that all these different fields are of each being are interacting with our field all the time, but we're not aware of it. And we're not aware of it, we're not tuned into it, we're not sensitized to it, in great part because of the way we look at life, right? So when we open our minds to this whole different view of life, and then in subtle energy meditation, what we're teaching people is to sensitize, to be able to feel the energy oscillations within, and then feel the energetic connections to other beings and to life as a whole. That felt experience starts to awaken and come alive. And then when you're living from that, you are living this connected, vibrant, vibrating reality in which all of us are interacting with each other by everything that we do, everything we say, everything we think and feel is circulating between us. And so when we have that view, then we become not only able to feel it, but also very conscious about, okay, what am I putting into that field? How I want to do something about what's happening here with my thoughts, feelings, my actions, so that I'm making a positive contribution to all.
Yeah, Kevin, is such a wonderful foundation to work from, because when you consider that even modern physics, it doesn't speak about matter being passive and inert. So if we're feeling alone and we're passive and inert, that is actually not the fundamental nature of matter itself, because matter itself is often pictured as in modern physics as being this continuous dancing vibratory motion which has rhythmic patterns, which has and the patterns are determined by the molecular, atomic, and nuclear structures. And curiously, modern physics connects that same picture of dancing vibratory motion to the Eastern mystical paths, and how they also, in Taoist traditions, Tibetan traditions, and so on, see the material world, because they emphasize that the universe itself has to be grasped dynamically as it moves and vibrates and dances, because nature is not static, but it's a dynamic equilibrium. So this power of dynamism and this power, so that's one of the things we often encourage in our subtle energy practices, is to energize to begin with. And this is so important, because it sets in motion the basic nature of the universe itself, that the universe is in a state of constant flux and movement and change. And so there is this really deep and powerful dynamism that you tap into the moment you get up in the morning. And like Yogananda says, wake, a mighty saint, and he raps his knuckles on his head and gets the blood flowing. I mean, this is the interdependent vibratory and field effect right present in that simple action of getting up in the morning and doing something to energize the body. So that's something we've encouraged right from the beginning. And both you and I have had a long practice of doing yoga and Tai Chi and Qigong and so on as part of the initial, dancing in the vibratory, oscillating nature of the universe itself. So I think it's really important to see that interdependency, and to see the nature of the body, mind, heart as being a dancing, moving, vibratory, dynamic equilibrium, and something that is in continuous motion. So when we do feel alone and we kind of become very inert and static, all we really need is a simple reminder to do first, to energize this, to actually relate. Remember, we're interdependent and interconnected, and the universe itself actually in its very nature supports this dynamic movement, supports this dancing nature of being.
So to leave everyone with just a simple practice to feel this when you leave this video today, just take a couple minutes and move your body, jump up and down, shake your body until you really feel yourself loose and moving, and then just stop and just open up inside and feel the vibrations of all your cells. And you will instantly know, oh, that's the nature of our reality. Thank you, Stephen, for this chat.
Thank you, Kevin. Yeah, thank you all.